Mori is a director, one of the directors at FractAI, is proud to be making positive contribution to the direction of AI research and safety in the UK. He holds a master's degree in European Studies from the University of Gothenburg with a specialization in European digital law and its relationship to emerging technologies like AI and blockchain. He's also the founder of Nowhere Consultancy, which helps startups and small businesses in Sweden stay compliant in the fast changing world of digital regulations. Maury will be taking us on citizen literacy for robust AI. So, Maury, the ground floor is yours to take over. Thank you so much for joining this section.
Thanks very much for having me. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. It's really good to be speaking to you today. One other quick matter of introduction, which has happened so recently that I actually got it after I wrote that short brief, is that I'm now working as a data protection officer and a quality manager for Sectra AB in Linköping in Sweden. So fingers in many pies. Can I just check that? There we go. The screen sharing is on. Excellent. And Stella, you'll be controlling my slides for me. Excellent. Okay. Could I take the next slide, please? There we go. Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay. So this is the running order for the session today. Basically, back one slide. There we go. Could you just take me back to the introduction slide, please, Stella? There we go. Thank you very much. One forward. There we go. That's it. Excellent. Thank you very much. So the motivation that Marie and I felt when we were starting this particular piece of research was difficulties that we felt was being faced by the AI strategy that was being pursued by the UK government. Obviously, the UK government has had an AI strategy for a number of years now, and it's very advanced. And it is talking an awful lot about the ways in which it wants to implement artificial intelligence into our economy, our defence, education, people's ordinary lives, how it wants citizens that are going to be AI literate and are able to use AI in a great many domains, both to improve their own lives and so as to assist government, business, industry, whatever, in the goals that they're seeking to pursue. Part of the problem, however, that we really saw was that there was this gap between what the government was saying it wanted and the means and methods that it was putting in place in order to achieve those particular aims. And obviously what we want to do here at Fractal AI as far as possible is to work to bridge those gaps, is to provide that expert advice to government and private actors and to AI industry on how projects like this ought to be conducted. And so our aim here was to investigate essentially what does it take in order to build robust citizen AI literacy. I'm sure you've heard the word robust many times today, and I'll talk a little bit about what we mean by citizen AI literacy as we go on. But to begin with, essentially what we mean is how do we take a population, many of whom are old, many of whom are out of formal education, many of whom do not possess a technical background, and help them to understand artificial intelligence, because it really is going to be an incredibly important force going forward. And so our serious concern is in ensuring that all citizens are capable of using it properly, both for their own benefit and for the benefit of wider society. So like I said, this year, the outline, this is the running order for the session. I'm going to focus mainly on our results and analysis, the bits that are actually interesting. I am going to go over the background to the project, or have, and how that ties into our motivations for running it. I'll leave some time for questions at the end, but I'm more than happy to take any pressing or clarifying questions as I'm talking. Please just do feel free to ask. I also always at presentations like this like to state that this particular juncture that I didn't use artificial intelligence, generative or otherwise, in any capacity to put together this presentation. Next slide, please, Stella. I realise now we probably don't need to go over this stuff because I reckon that you will have heard most of this today. So if I could take the next slide, please. Yeah, so Stella gave me a nice introduction there. I'll just explain a little bit more about my background and how I came to this particular project. So at the master's level, I have a background in logic and philosophy, as well as in political science. And like Stella said, in the latter case, I specialized in the relationship between European digital law and emerging technologies such as AI and blockchain, particularly from the perspective of risk reduction and ethical implementation. That is the work that I currently pursue now here at Sectra in Linköping in Sweden, where my job as a data protection officer focuses essentially on governance, risk, and compliance. I've been a member of both the Institute of Science and Technology and now a co-founder director of FractAI. I come originally from Glasgow on the west coast of Scotland. Next slide, please, Stella. And the next. Excellent. Okay, thank you. So part of the problem we have in discussing AI is that we're grappling with technologies which are being used in really new and unexpected ways. But we only really seem to have somewhat outdated paradigms within which to conceptualize them. This is a bit like when cars first began to be built. They were first referred to as horseless carriages. And you can even see the same thing now with certain autonomous mobile weapons platforms being called something like robot dogs. This is a consistent pattern in the history of the development of technology. The new is framed in terms of something old. I know that we had a wonderful presentation earlier today about the philosophy of mind in relationship to AI. And in the case of AI, as we were hearing earlier today, this same pattern is something like calling AI a thinking computer. At Fractal, we call this the "don't say that AI has a brain" problem. Part of what we're working against is the idea that AI is thinking or sentient or reasoning in the same way that we do. That is, the new being framed in terms of the old. With that being said, we still absolutely have to examine the concept of AI literacy. What is it for skills like reading and writing and critical thinking to be updated or transformed in terms of artificial intelligence? We understand computer literacy well enough, but the fact that generative AI can, for example, create photorealistic images, which can then be deployed to create, say, false political narratives, means that literacy in the AI domain is different from computer literacy. This isn't just about understanding how to use a technical system. Now, of course, this isn't such a hard dividing line. Computer literacy also involves understanding social consequences, and AI literacy contains technical elements. This is more qualitatively in the types of the vectors of knowledge which are required to understand AI and its effects. The social effects of global computation didn't involve, watching 1,000 fake videos of Keir Starmer announcing impossible policies every day. We are doing something different. AI literacy is a very tricky subject with which to get to grips because it interfaces with so many other domains. If, however, we can become AI literate as a nation, then we stand to fulfill the government's aim of having the UK be an AI superpower. And this is part of the key which unlocks global competitiveness for the UK in the AI space. Falling behind, however, could be disastrous. AI is like a force multiplier. It builds upon systems which already exist, and it greatly increases their capacities. Falling 1 month behind in AI development might mean you need 6 months to close the gap because your competitors' AI capabilities are building iteratively upon themselves. And so we have to address the problem of helping the public to understand AI in the proper terms so as to build citizen AI literacy. This means ensuring our competitiveness and preventing us from falling behind. Next slide, please. Now, I outlined it briefly in the introduction, but it is worth pausing here just for a minute to talk about the government's AI strategy and what they're calling the AI playbook. These are major resources which have been distributed to the public to help them to understand AI and to help businesses in the UK to prepare for the AI transition. The strategy has 3 pillars: building the physical, social, and intellectual infrastructure for an AI ecosystem in the UK. That would be something like data centers, skilled professionals, and public understanding, respectively. Ensuring that all regions of the UK can benefit from the AI transition and ensuring that the effects of these technologies are governed properly. From my perspective, there's an awful lot to like about this strategy. It's broad in scope, it sets out several key time horizons out to the 10-year mark. This is about long-term investment in the UK's future as an AI power. As you can see, though, there are drawbacks. Firstly, the government is not proposing a unified regulatory framework similar to that seen in the EU's AI Act. Rather, various aspects of AI will be regulated and legislated for using smaller mechanisms. Secondly, while the strategy focuses on school learners and properly preparing them for a career which will be impacted by AI, it doesn't discuss the idea of early childhood education and the development of AI literacy. And particularly given the importance of developing these skills early in life, and that even young children will be affected by AI, we at Fractal believe that a lack of discussion about the relationship between early childhood education and AI literacy is an oversight in the strategy. Next slide, please. As discussed, we consider AI literacy to be an absolutely critical skill. And on the next slide, I'll delve into some of the theoretical background that we're working with and what its conclusions are. This kind of AI literacy has to begin in early childhood and be supported by parents. On that point, though, part of the problem that we're facing here is that many parents are simply not confident enough in the required domains, whether that be in teaching per se, in understanding AI for themselves, and in knowing how to communicate about AI to their children. And so we come to our project, how to support parents using the proper guidance and resources such that they can build AI literacy for themselves and for their children. Okay, next slide. There is a lot of theoretical background to this that we could theoretically cover, and that is gone over in the article that we have written. But for the sake of time, I'm going to focus here on the background to AI literacy and how it has previously been considered. AI literacy has been defined in a really broad range of ways. For example, a focus on societal impact, execution plans, and ethics, with a focus on secondary students and factors such as behavioural and ethical learning, or one which targets the general population. Many studies explicitly acknowledge the interdisciplinary nature of AI literacy. They argue that the competencies of those who qualify as AI literate must cover more than just technical skills. There must be a concomitant focus on social and ethical skills, as well as developing citizens' understandings of politics. This theme indeed is quite consistent across the literature beyond simply our examples cited previously. In our estimation, from an overview of the literature on AI literacy, the topic of interdisciplinary education is consistently raised as one which is critical to the proper development of AI literacy. In a practical capacity, our call to develop interdisciplinary educational resources for AI is echoed by other researchers who have identified the core role played by interdisciplinary literacy. In their work on defining it, for example, two prominent researchers, Long and McGurko, outline a competency-based framework for determining the extent to which an individual is AI literate. They define AI literacy as a set of competencies that enables individuals to critically evaluate AI technologies, communicate and collaborate effectively with AI as a tool online, at home, and in the workplace. Their proposed competencies include recognizing AI and when it's being used, distinguishing between narrow and general AI, identifying potential weaknesses and limitations in AI systems, understanding how knowledge can be represented, and identifying ethical issues related to AI. There are, in their case, 16 such competencies proposed. The paper also proposes a set of design considerations which should be accounted for when composing educational resources on AI, and that's something I'll come to touch on slightly later on. These include encouraging learners to contextualize the data with which they're working, revealing information slowly and in line with the learner's capacity, and focusing on how childhood development milestones impact subjects' ability to learn. There are a huge number of papers like this, and I detailed this one just because it was an early influence on our work and because I think it's quite comprehensive, but there are a great many papers focusing on artificial intelligence literacy that argue for related, similar, sometimes slightly different frameworks. But this is an incredibly vibrant field with an awful lot of research being conducted at the moment. Can I take the next slide, please? So, given the theoretical background, I'm now going to go over a little bit about our project's aims. So what's been and then where we are going. So our primary concern, the reason why we started this project, is helping parents to be involved in their children's education so as to ensure the development of early childhood AI literacy. And what that means is that we need to understand the needs and concerns of parents. What type of support do they require? How do these requirements differ across time? In what areas do they generally feel competent versus those in which they don't? The end goal here is to meet these parents' needs and to provide them with open access, expert curated and up-to-date educational resources, there we go, to help them educate their children on AI literacy. And I'll discuss more about the forms that these might take later on. There we are, already onto project methods. So to start the project, we put together a public survey, which we then pushed out through all of our available channels. This was designed to provide us with a rough overview of public opinion and to allow us to see how we might like to proceed further. I'll discuss the results from these in the next section. The survey questions covered a broad range of topics. The first part of them concerned simply attitudes towards AI and how participants use it. The second was about their responses to our specific project proposals. We then followed that up with a couple of focused interviews with two of our respondents who gave particularly good and detailed responses. And the aim here was to uncover their thoughts slightly more deeply and allow them to extemporize more freely. And our aim at that stage was to gather as much detail as possible and to allow participants to express themselves as fully as possible. Next slide, please. And one more. Okay, so I'm going to now go over the results from the initial survey and then just provide our analysis. So our analysis here, and sorry, what you can see here is across the top of the graph, you have the question that we asked and then the various responses given across the bottom there. Can you go back one slide for me, please, Stella? Thank you. Okay, so our analysis indicates that respondents to the survey were overwhelmingly likely to be aware of at least some kind of risk level associated with AI. This effect, however, is only really seen at the group level. The individual responses show a different pattern. The single largest group of respondents indicated that while they were aware of some things, they felt like they would like to receive more education on the topic. Moreover, for those respondents who stated that they were aware of risk level, they didn't elaborate on the ways in which they were aware. So this leaves something of a gap in our knowledge regarding their learning and how it can be improved. Next slide, please. Our analysis here basically indicates that the overwhelming number, that is 50 out of 64 respondents to the survey, felt themselves to be unaware of ethical guidance with respect to AI development. Of those who indicated some awareness of such guidance, some stated that the advice they received was non-specific and constantly subject to change, that the information they received was unreliable, and that some knowledge of such guidance had been gained through self-directed study at university. Next slide, please. The data from survey respondents here indicates that the overwhelming number believe that AI will change our lives. The second and third largest group of respondents stated opposite views, that AI is less important than generally thought and more important than generally thought, which was an interesting contrast. Neither of these views, however, particularly disagrees with the assessment of the largest group that AI is going to change our lives. Next slide, please. Interestingly, here again, the overwhelming majority of respondents believe that there should be some form of obligation for the deployers of AI systems to inform the subjects of AI-based decisions why a certain decision has been made. And by far the largest group believe that this obligation should be made statutory, while the second largest group believe the obligation to inform the subject of an AI-based decision should be one which is just socially obligated out of an adherence to good practice. Next slide, please. Interestingly, the largest group of respondents here only use one AI service at a time. And of those who use it, the most common was ChatGPT, which had been used here by 46 out of 58 respondents. Even though, interestingly, that the survey was focused on uses of AI, the second largest group of respondents didn't actually use AI services at all. Next slide. We then asked questions about where respondents got their sources of information regarding artificial intelligence from, and by far the most popular answer amongst respondents was that they took their information regarding AI from popular sources, Wikipedia, Medium, Forbes, other technical publications. Several themes here emerged in our analysis. A commonly cited reason for engaging with these sources was ease of access. Several respondents noted that the tendency of these information outlets to appear near the top of search results was crucial in their choice to engage with them. And so this was due, in one case, to the fact that engaging with them meant reducing the amount of time that the respondent would otherwise have to spend searching for relevant information. And that particular respondent just offered that information to us. One respondent indicated that they would read whatever pops up after a search, indicating a low level of interest in screening sources for relevance or accuracy. Some respondents also noted that these sources tended to be easy to engage with through presenting information in a simple and accessible way. To the point of reliability more broadly, several respondents stated that their reasons for trusting these sources were owed to a perception of trustworthiness and reliability. Next slide, please. There we go. So a large number, that is 37 to 55, of the respondents, but not an overwhelming number, rated the quality of the information that they received from the sources that they used to learn about AI as positive. However, while most respondents were positive, these feelings were not very strong. Most feelings and most answers clustered around the mid-positive level, with relatively few responses expressing the uppermost levels of positivity in terms of the quality of information that they acquired. Next slide. The overwhelming number of respondents believed that a website offering expert advice to the general public would be a good idea. The answers given clearly cluster around the upper end of the scale. And next slide, please. And you can see a graph looking very similar here. So as with the previous one, it's clear that the overwhelming majority of respondents like the idea of our project proposals. We thought it was interesting, like I said, the two graphs look very similar to one another in terms of the relative size of the column, perhaps indicating to us that support for one proposal is likely to lead to support for another. Next slide, please. Always good, of course, to think about potential limitations. And so before proceeding to a full discussion of the results of the survey, we thought it was worth noting the sort of potential limitations on the data set. The respondents were almost all over the age of 30. They almost all spoke English as a first language and were of British origin or were living within the Anglosphere. Most also possessed at least a postgraduate qualification. Given the status of this study as the first part of a broader project which aims to develop educational resources for British and British students, we don't consider these limitations particularly to be detrimental to the success of the study. It's actually quite beneficial to have heard from this particular set of respondents. That being said, we do acknowledge that some parts of the study may have to be rerun were we to engage with international stakeholders. Next slide, please. Okay, so to do just a little bit of analysis. The most common professional occupations for respondents were in the education and technology sectors. And we thought this result is roughly to be expected, given that the survey was distributed through a number of university networks, as well as the prior affiliation of the authors with the IST. On the question of whether respondents were optimistic or pessimistic, there was no marked bias one way or the other. Comparatively few of the responses to the questions were certain, most leaning slightly one way or the other. Interestingly, the overwhelming consensus among respondents was that they wanted to know more about AI. Vanishingly few stated they didn't want to learn more, were uninterested in AI in general, or had no intention of engaging with AI. Given the professional occupations of the respondents, this desire to learn more was in line with the concerns which they consistently expressed about the possibility of their jobs being replaced by AI agents or lower skilled workers using AI agents. And we felt that given such a potential scenario, a desire to learn more about AI is quite understandable. The respondents were similarly concerned with the impact that AI is going to have on wider society, which complements their desire to learn more about it. The overwhelming consensus was that AI will change our lives. There was a similarly strong consensus that AI providers should be required by some standard to disclose to those affected by AI decisions why a particular decision was made. There's a strong ethical through line in what's going on here. About twice as many respondents favoured a legal solution to this requirement as opposed to one based on the notion of good practice. This favouring of a legislative solution is perhaps related to the broad range of concerns which respondents indicated that they possessed about the potential impacts of AI on society. These concerns covered sectors from the quality of democracy, societal critical thinking, economics, public policy. There was a very broad range here. And we think that this wide range of concerns expressed by respondents indicates the need to develop an educational curriculum which can meet a broad range of requirements from the general public. Education as a means of ensuring that citizens feel able to understand and respond to the challenges presented by AI is critical to helping the public overcome their concerns and engage with AI responsively and productively. Respondents indicated they overwhelmingly gain information, like I said, from about AI from popular sources. The responses provided indicated quite a wide range of motivations for doing so. Like I said, some that it was simply convenient, some that it was just easy to understand. Information sources such as workplace educational seminars, academic papers, white papers, publications by NGOs were generally held in high regard and were trusted by respondents, which is obviously very positive for us. Several respondents, however, indicated that some of the participants in the survey weren't actually actively seeking out new information and were instead more passively consuming whatever was presented to them. Respondents were strongly in favour of our project proposal to build educational resources on AI and to provide ethical assessment of AI businesses. Respondents felt that doing so would better allow them to engage with AI and would provide a greater understanding of AI systems. Similar feelings were expressed about the suggestion to run a website containing information on AI provided by experts and to do so free of charge for the general public. Respondents indicated that they felt that such a website would better help them to understand AI. And we felt that this was the sort of thing that gelled well with the data that was coming out of our survey. One thing that was quite interesting that we found was that, and we have to be careful because this isn't directly supported by the evidence that we gathered, but it is something that we have wondered about, is that the responses of the young adult cohort to the survey didn't actually differ widely in their opinions from the adult responses. And this might be a result of the public as a whole responding similarly regardless of age, but it's also possible that this phenomenon indicates that parents are passing on information and opinions to their children about artificial intelligence. And in this case, the goal of our project to engage parents in early childhood education for their children would have an extra impetus to succeed, although that is something we do need to do a little bit more research into. Next slide, please. We then undertook, I should probably say focused interviews rather than focused groups. But we then spoke to two participants in the survey who, like I said, had given particularly good answers, and were asking them for their larger opinions. And these were some of the recommendations that they gave. They were talking about the needs for focused guidance for both parents and children. Both of the individuals that we were speaking to are themselves parents. The focused guidance for both parents and children within the resources that we're putting together. One respondent was very keen to point out, as they put it, the context sensitivity of definitions and the accommodations of particular groups. Their point was that amongst certain groups in the UK, there's a comparatively low level of uptake of internet participation. And so engaging with these groups on a topic like this could be particularly difficult. And so how we engage with these groups needs to change depending on who that we're speaking to. They both felt that Fractal was very well placed for the guidance, the type of guidance we were trying to provide. And we're pointing out how pedagogy contains hard skills like curriculum design, but then also the soft skills such as socialization, which are particularly important when trying to engage with agentic AI systems. Both were concerned with, and there's something we are concerned about as well, a study like this takes a lot of time to run, but we're very concerned about the rapid development of the field and understanding what it is that's coming down the pipe that we aren't yet able to see. And both also emphasize the need to engage with as many people as possible, the click value metric. Next slide, please. There we go. So these are the conclusions and recommendations that we came to. So participants generally felt that our proposal was very well liked. Many of our respondents were parents who felt that obviously parental guidance is critical. Many felt that the needs of the public on artificial intelligence were just not being met, and that it was particularly difficult to meet the training needs, so to speak, of parents. While education about AI through school and tertiary education does provide opportunities for learning about AI, most of the population is out of formal education and is unlikely to return. And so this is a cohort which must, owing to its prevalence within workplaces, be sufficiently trained in the use of and educated about the risks of AI. While employers can and should be encouraged to provide training sessions for employees, ensuring standardization in terms of content and quality is currently beyond the reach of the government. This is an area that can be filled by extending the findings of this study and working with universities to develop educational resources for parents and children. One thing that really stood out here is just how nervous the public are about artificial intelligence and the impacts that it might have upon wider society, upon their employment. And they seem very keen on the development of regulatory solutions to protect consumer rights and ensure transparency. And this is part of what is motivating a general curiosity about AI and the desire to seek out information which is more helpful and trustworthy. Next slide, please. So we're still examining exactly what form the final output of the project is going to take, but we do have some ideas that I do want to discuss. So for each of them, we want to make sure that they can be continuously updated by subject matter experts and can be easily accessible by the public. The first is going to be a glossary of artificial intelligence related terms explained at several levels of difficulty. This would allow children themselves to engage with the material while also meaning that parents could engage at a higher level and then discuss with their children. We also want to provide ethical analysis of AI businesses. This would focus on, for example, practices related to data protection, environmental regulations, use of software for militaristic purposes, compliance with child protection legislation. We believe that the public wants to be informed about the sources with which they're engaging and to use those sources which are ethical in nature. And we also want to produce course plans which can guide parents in their engagement with their children regarding AI. These would focus on, for example, how to spot AI-generated imagery in a technical sense, but also how to think about the consequences of generated images in a social and political sense, hence why we require an interdisciplinary approach.